For all its beauty and splendor, the wilderness can be a cruel teacher. Exploring the world's beauty by venturing into the wilderness through hiking is an incredible experience. There's a special kind of appeal to a solo adventure, to being out on your own, away from everything and everyone, unless, of course, something goes wrong and you find yourself in serious trouble and all alone. Please click the subscribe and like buttons. This is Outdoor Disasters. Joshua Tree National Park is a remarkable desert wilderness. Located in southeastern California, USA, it covers approximately 1,235 square miles, or 3,199 square kilometers, and is renowned for its stunning and otherworldly landscapes. Joshua Tree is a place where nature's artistry takes center stage and beckons you to a world of wonder and inspiration. Here, amidst the rugged terrain, ancient Joshua trees stand as sentinels of resilience, their twisted branches reaching for the heavens. In the stark contrast of the desert landscape, you'll discover an oasis of inspiration, a canvas painted with vibrant sunsets, and a night sky ablaze with a myriad of stars. The park is named after the Joshua tree, which is a distinctive and iconic plant species found within its boundaries. These trees, with their spiky leaves and gnarled branches, are not actually trees, but rather large yucca plants. They provide a surreal and captivating backdrop to the park's scenery. The park is characterized by its diverse landscapes, which include rugged mountains, high desert plains, bouldered canyons, and vast desert expanses. It is situated at the convergence of the Mojave Desert and the Colorado Desert, resulting in a unique mix of ecosystems. The park is renowned for its striking rock formations, which are a paradise for rock climbers and hikers. Among the famous formations are Skull Rock, Arch Rock, and Wonderland of Rocks. The weathered and sculpted granite formations create a surreal playground for outdoor enthusiasts. Joshua Tree National Park is a destination that captivates the imagination with its unique natural beauty and offers a sanctuary for those seeking adventure, solitude, and a connection with the desert landscape. It continues to be a beloved and iconic national park in the United States. For Claire Nelson, her Joshua Tree adventure would take a turn for the worse. Nelson, who hails from New Zealand, made a significant move to London in her early 20s, where she embarked on a career as a freelance writer. Eventually, she transitioned into the role of an editor at a food and travel magazine. After spending 13 years in the bustling city, she needed a change. Her plan was to travel for a couple of years and spend time outdoors, figuring out how she really wanted to live, who she wanted to be. All my anxieties and fears in my life really just came down to my role in the lives of other people. Where I belonged and where I fit in and what my value as a person is, how I'm perceived and understood. And there's something about being out in the wilderness on your own. It's like all of that is stripped away. And that's really what I wanted to go to. I wanted to lean into that and feel safe out in this place on my own, because it was so far from the things that were making me stressed and anxious, she expressed. Claire opted to relocate to Canada, seeking a new beginning. Shortly after she arrived in Canada, Claire received a message from an old roommate who had since relocated to Joshua Tree. She and her partner would be out of town for a few weeks and wondered if Claire wanted to take care of their cats. She jumped at the opportunity with the motivation to discover peace and purpose amid the natural beauty of the outdoors. So, in May 2018, she embarked on her journey to one of the harshest national parks in America. After house-sitting for just over a week, she devised a strategy to optimize her hiking opportunities. She meticulously crafted a calendar outlining which days she'd allocate for hiking adventures. Her first choice for a hike within the park was the renowned Lost Palms Oasis Trail. This trail, with a moderate rating, spans 7 miles round trip, leading to a cluster of magnificent California palms, and stood as one of the park's more popular routes. Claire, aiming for a less crowded experience, selected a Tuesday for her excursion. It unfolded as a scorching, late May day of sheer beauty. Initially planning to commence her hike early to escape the intense heat, Claire encountered a small hiccup when she lost her way en route to the trailhead, ultimately necessitating a visit to the ranger station at the visitor center for much-needed directions. I asked if there was anything I should be aware of on the trail, and they warned me there was a little bit of a scramble at some point. I said, "That's fine. I'm comfortable with scrambling. Sounds great," she said. She ensured she had an ample supply of water to withstand the day's scorching heat, carrying 5 liters with her. When she finally embarked on the trail, it was around 9 a.m., a slightly later start than she had originally intended. It's such a beautiful trail. You come up onto this really high ridge at one point, and you're looking down so that the valley just rolls on each side, and it just took my breath away, Nelson said. The enchanting beauty and tranquil atmosphere of Joshua Tree filled Claire with joy. With no one else in sight, it felt as if she had the entire park to herself. This solitude was precisely what Claire had sought when she made the decision to visit Joshua Tree. However, the tranquility would transform into a nightmarish ordeal as she embarked on her day hike, and everything would take a disastrous turn. Claire Nelson discovered herself meandering through a desert wash, savoring the tranquility that came with being alone with her thoughts in this breathtaking landscape. Eventually, she reached a vast boulder deck, a formation consisting of a substantial pile of massive rocks, she recalls. And I thought, oh, that's strange. The trail just literally stops, and there's these boulders. And I thought, well, they did mention there was some scrambling, so I guess this is where it starts. Miss Nelson ascended the initial section of boulders with relative ease. The vista from the opposite side was untamed and expansive, presenting an unending expanse of rocky terrain, cliffs, and boulders. Overwhelmed by the view, she decided to sit down for a moment and absorb it all. To reach the opposite side, she had to navigate her way across the rocky terrain and descend into the valley. She carefully assessed her footing on the boulder, ensuring her balance as she prepared to cross the stack and make her way downward. Placing her right foot down, she securely nestled her feet into a foothold. I thought I would just press my weight, swing my leg over, and be done, but as soon as I started to put more weight on my foot, it just slipped and I started to slide, and everything went in slow motion. I could remember every movement in my body. Claire clutched a hiking stick in one hand and desperately reached for anything to grab onto with her other hand. But there was nothing to hold on to. Suddenly, Claire found herself plummeting approximately 25 feet from the boulder, crashing onto the ground on her back amidst a cluster of boulders. The impact left her unable to move her legs, but to her immense relief, her toes retained their mobility, indicating she wasn't paralyzed. Claire had sustained a shattered pelvis from the fall, rendering her immobile from the waist down, with only her arms remaining under her control. She retrieved her phone from her backpack and attempted to dial 911, yet she discovered that there was no cellular service available. It was at this point the horror of the situation hit me. I can't move and I can't tell anyone what happened. Then I remembered. I haven't told anyone where I was going, she said. The situation was dire for Claire Nelson, and survival was slim to none. Even as she realized how bad of a situation she was in, Claire was mad at herself. She recognized she should have known better than to venture on a solo hike without informing someone of her whereabouts. Ironically, she had previously passed judgment on individuals who had made similar choices, and now she found herself in that very position. Claire Nelson contemplated her situation, realizing that she couldn't reach anybody, having failed to inform anyone about her hike. She concluded that her best option was to wait for another hiker to pass by. It was late morning, around 11 a.m., and she held hope that someone else would explore the trail that day. As she diligently searched her phone for a way to alert others, she stumbled upon the SOS function on her iPhone, thinking it might save her. However, she soon realized that this feature required a phone signal to work. Frustrated and anxious, she continued exploring her phone's capabilities. Claire had downloaded all her Google Maps in advance, anticipating the lack of signal in the area. When she opened the maps, she noticed the small blue GPS dot indicating her location. Upon closer examination, she realized that she had strayed at least a mile from the trail. This discovery shattered her last hope of someone finding her. At that moment, the full weight of her horrifying situation sunk in.
This is not where I expected to end up. Shattered pelvis. In the desert.
She was becoming aware of the searing heat that surrounded her. She lay flat on her back within the towering boulders, exposed to the relentless sun. During that season, temperatures in the park soared to as high as 90 to 95 degrees at the peak of the day. Claire realized the urgency of shielding herself from the sun to avoid the risk of sunburn.
It is fucking hot. I don't know what temperature it is out here. It must be in the 40s. And I can't get to any shade. I just tried, out of a sheer moment of fuck the pain again, and I tried to roll myself over into that little shady alcove.
She was only wearing hiking shorts and a t-shirt, appropriate attire for a desert hike. Being stranded, unable to move in the desert, the Joshua Tree Desert, with the sun bearing down on her skin, and the desert nights where temperatures plummet, her clothes would not be close to enough protection. I had my friend's hiking stick that I borrowed from the house. I used the hiking stick to apply sunscreen to my legs because I couldn't reach them. And then I held my hat up with one arm over my face between me and the sun. And that was just kind of how I spent that day. I don't really think I was planning anything or considering how long I might be there. It was simply that I need to do everything I can right now, right here, to survive the elements, Claire said. She took an inventory of her supplies. She had 3 liters of water left and a few snacks. A small first aid kit with a couple of Tylenol and a digital camera. She was lying there alone, wondering if anyone would find her. She decided to record a message on the camera. As she recorded the message, Claire felt a little embarrassed. She was alone with a broken pelvis miles from a trail without cell service, but still. She felt like she was being overly dramatic, at least until the sun started to set, when I realized I was going to be spending the night out there. That was so terrifying to me. The idea that I'd injured myself on a hike in the daytime was one thing. That's an accident. The fact that I was now going to be out there at night, and the night is a long time, that was when, like, oh, this is really serious. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified, because now there wasn't anything to hold on to. No one was going to come out at night, like there was no one was going to come by. I had nothing to do except to just survive the night, she said. Claire's mind grappled with the fear of encountering rattlesnakes, even though she knew they weren't nocturnal, but it was rattlesnake season. Being at ground level and unable to move heightened her vulnerability, leading her to anticipate nocturnal wildlife encounters. Every slight noise or disturbance in the surroundings made her body tense up. Adding to her discomfort was the cold, as the temperature had dropped significantly since the day before. As Claire lay there, she contemplated that if she could endure until morning, someone would likely find her. This newfound hope accompanied the arrival of daylight, which had a profound impact on her state of mind. She recorded another message, documenting her makeshift shelter and the changing conditions as the sun rose. However, Claire's phone eventually died, leaving her unable to track time or communicate. She clung to a faint hope that somehow her phone's tracking function might be activated despite her lack of a signal. Claire's isolation weighed heavily on her. She found solace in using her camera to leave messages for herself, providing a sense of connection and comfort in her dire circumstances. This act helped her feel seen and heard, even in her isolation.
In this crazy heat, I keep thinking I'm hearing a helicopter. At one point I thought I heard an ambulance in the distance, but it was all in my head. It's not fair.
After 24 hours of enduring these challenges, Claire began to feel the physical effects of dehydration, including a parched mouth, sore throat, and kidney discomfort. She had been collecting her urine in a bottle to avoid urinating in her pants, as she wanted to minimize any attraction to animals and additional discomfort. As her water supply dwindled, Claire contemplated drinking the collected urine for survival. She eventually made the pragmatic decision to try it, recognizing the direness of her situation. Throughout this ordeal, her focus remained mainly on survival, though there were moments when her mind would wander to more emotional thoughts. She found herself contemplating regrets and, notably, the time she had spent on social media. Claire realized that her excessive social media use had been a way to mask her true self and avoid vulnerability. This introspection was a significant part of her mental journey during the ordeal. That's a tough thing to be reflecting on as you are there alone. And the irony of it is that lying out there and reflecting on it, it's also the realization that by not forming stronger connections and stronger lines of communication with the people in my life is part of the reason I was in that situation in the first place. On the afternoon of the second day, Claire decided she needed to try to rescue herself using her walking stick as a lever under her body. She tried to roll over. Claire Nelson contemplated the idea of rolling over onto her front and attempting to drag herself. However, even the thought of moving her body even an inch sent blinding waves of pain through her. She realized the impossibility of this physical feat and understood that she couldn't risk losing consciousness in the scorching heat, uncertain if she would awaken if she did. She only attempted this once, struggling with the overwhelming heat. As the second day progressed and the sun began to set, Claire's hopes for rescue dwindled. She found herself facing moments of doubt, wondering if she would endure another night. These thoughts weighed heavily on her, with questions about whether anyone was even looking for her, or if she would be left to perish in isolation. When she woke up on the third day, Claire felt increasingly alone, but held on to a glimmer of optimism, hoping that this would be the day she was rescued. The approaching weekend brought a renewed sense of hope, as she believed that more people visiting the park would increase her chances of being found. However, the relentless heat began to play tricks on her mind, causing her to imagine hearing helicopters and ambulances in the distance, just mere hallucinations. On that third day, Claire shed her first tears, a sign that her hope was waning. Despite these low points, she never completely lost her survival instinct. Even in her darkest moments, she would rally herself, determined to endure and survive. Claire's journey through these mental and emotional challenges was marked by a continuous internal battle to hold onto her will, to survive between moments of despair and determination. Claire Nelson found it difficult to fend off thoughts of hopelessness as the days passed. She had received no indication that anyone was actively searching for her, leaving her feeling isolated and abandoned. However, on the morning of her third day in the wilderness, she found a glimmer of hope as she realized that the approaching weekend might bring more visitors to the park, increasing her chances of being found. She clung to any opportunity for hope, using it as a lifeline to keep herself going. Despite her determination to stay positive, the scorching heat began to play tricks on Claire's mind. She imagined hearing helicopters and ambulances, even though they were mere hallucinations induced by the extreme conditions. Although there were moments when she felt on the brink of surrender, she always managed to rally herself, determined to endure and survive. Her journey through these emotional fluctuations resembled a zigzag pattern as she grappled with despair and unwavering determination. Eventually, on the fourth morning, Claire's perspective began to shift. She woke up feeling weaker than ever, both physically and mentally, and began contemplating the possibility of not making it out alive. She acknowledged the stunning beauty of the place where she might meet her end, a serene acceptance beginning to settle in. With her reserves depleted and her mind drifting, Claire lay in the heat, drifting in and out of consciousness. Suddenly, she heard the distinct sound of a helicopter flying low and voices. At first, she dismissed it as another hallucination, but as the helicopter circled and the voices grew louder, she realized it was real. I heard the helicopter again, and this time I'm like, there really is a helicopter. And I heard this voice come again over the loudspeaker, and they said they were looking for a missing hiker. And at that point, I didn't know whether that was me that they were looking for or another hiker. Anything was possible. But the fact that there was a search helicopter out there was like, this is my chance. This is the only chance I've got. I don't have much fight left in me, but they've got to see me, she recalled. The rescue helicopter was searching for her, and her adrenaline surged. She waved her sunshade and screamed, desperately trying to get their attention. However, the helicopter was initially too far away to see her clearly, leaving Claire anxious and disheartened. It circled once more, and this time they called her name and asked her to make herself known. I just need them to come back, and I need them to come over here. Like, if they're looking for me, then clearly they're looking for me on the trail, and I'm not on the trail. I decided I would reinforce the sunshade and make it as big as I could. I put my t-shirt and hat on it. I thought, if they come back, I just need them to see this thing. And then they did come back, and I stretched my arms up. I was full of adrenaline at this point. I'd gone from being completely, on my lowest ebb that I've ever been in my life to this surge of adrenaline. And I'm stretching my arms up, and my body is aching in just agony, but I'm waving the sunshade and screaming like, I'm here, I'm here. And I still can't see the helicopter. But then I hear them say, we see you, we're gonna come and get you. I will never forget those words. I will never in my life forget those words. And I dropped my sunshade, my arms fell to my sides, and I just thought, I don't have to fight anymore, and I'm gonna live. Claire's adrenaline-fueled efforts finally paid off as they spotted her makeshift signal and assured her they would rescue her. It took time for the rescue team to reach Claire's remote location and even more time to figure out how to extricate her. Eventually, they carried her to a clearing where a helicopter could safely lift her to safety and transport her to a hospital in Palm Springs. In the hospital, Claire was given the medical attention she desperately needed, including morphine for pain and fluids for dehydration. She also received a phone call from her family who had been desperately searching for her. It was a moment of shock and relief to learn that she was not as alone as she had believed. Claire's journey to recovery was slow, marked by major surgery to repair her broken pelvis and months spent in a wheelchair. Emotionally, she faced a period of introspection and recovery, leaving London in order to find out who she was away from other people and lying broken on the desert floor. She'd undoubtedly come face to face with her raw self. I definitely don't recommend it as a method of finding yourself, but certainly what happened ended up fast-tracking that journey that I was on, and it was obviously in the most intense and painful way possible. But I came back to London at the end of the 2 years thinking, well, yeah, this is the wake-up call that I went looking for, and I think I'm always probably going to be figuring out who I am in some way. But the big difference now is learning to accept the things that I learn about myself, whether I like them or not, she said. A couple of years after the ordeal, Miss Nelson wrote a memoir, Things I Learned from Falling, about the near-death experience and how it reshaped her life. Claire was very fortunate, as Joshua Tree is notorious for missing people, deaths, and adventurers getting lost. Many do not make it out alive. In recent years, fatalities and injuries have become all too common in Joshua Tree, where an increase in visitation numbers has dangerously coincided with limited search and rescue resources. A year before Nelson's ordeal, Joseph Orbeso and Rachel Wen were last seen entering Joshua Tree National Park early on July 27, 2017, and were reported missing the next day by the owner of the Airbnb where they had stayed. After weeks of searching, the nearby Sheriff's Dispatch Center received a call from a Joshua Tree ranger reporting the remains of 2 deceased people locked in an embrace had been located inside the park. Authorities found the couple died of gunshot wounds. Many believe the murder-suicide resulted from desperation, not anger, and the shooting happened only after the couple became lost in the sprawling park and ran out of food and water. Their car was only 2 miles away. Facing mortality had shifted Claire Nelson's perspective, reminding her that the judgment she ultimately had to live with was her own. She vowed not to let her life be determined by the fears of imposter syndrome, fear of being disliked, or fear of being misunderstood. Miss Nelson expresses, "You only get this one life, and it's such a waste to let it be determined by what other people think." My life was driven by fear of being disliked, fear of being misunderstood, and all of those things. And while fears are natural and valid, they don't have to control how you spend your life. Being stranded and alone in the desert is an unfathomable test of human resilience. It's a place where the harshness of nature confronts our vulnerability, and the relentless sun and vast, arid landscapes challenge our very existence. But within this stark adversity lies a profound lesson and a wellspring of inspiration. In the face of such daunting odds, the human spirit shines its brightest. It's a testament to our inner strength, adaptability, and determination. In this desolation, we find the power to endure, innovate, and hope against all odds. Surviving a desert hiking emergency, especially when you're alone and injured, can be highly challenging. If you find yourself in such a situation, the first thing to do is don't panic. If you have a first aid kit, use it to stabilize your injury as best as possible. In the case of a broken pelvis, try to immobilize the area using clothing or gear, but avoid moving too much, as this can worsen the injury. Make yourself as visible as possible. Use reflective items, brightly colored clothing, or a signal mirror to catch the attention of potential rescuers. Yell or shout periodically to attract attention. The sound might carry over distances and someone nearby may hear you. Conserve your water supply as much as possible. If it is sips or significant gulps, the goal is to avoid dehydration, so drink what is needed to survive another day. Urine collection can be an option if your water supply is critically low, but it's a last resort. Protect yourself from the sun to prevent sunburn and heat stroke. Use available materials like clothing and gear to create shade over your body. If you have the means to start a fire safely, it can signal your location and provide warmth at night. Try to conserve energy by resting as much as possible. Do not exert yourself unnecessarily. Your priority should be staying hydrated and signaling for help. It's crucial to let someone know your hiking plans before heading into the desert and to carry essential survival gear, such as extra water, a first aid kit, signaling devices, and navigation tools. Additionally, always research and prepare for the specific challenges and conditions of the desert environment before embarking on a hike. Essential information so you can survive an outdoor disaster.